and science is slowly catching up to what all this talk was, and all like you said, all the ancient religions and talk of the macabre and these divine shapes and patterns, and even relates to the Bible and what it says in a lot of ways too. I mean, so people shouldn't just throw out the Bible because it's, you don't believe in that religion or form of, a philosophy, I guess, or idea of how we came about. But all religions have some type of, you can tell there's definitely a underlying connection between all of them and what they're really trying to do.
Truth scattered within all that. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. That being said, let me see. We're kind of moving fast, but that ties into anthroposophy a lot. And we can kind of go back and forth. I was going to say before we get there, like the morphogenic field is another way of saying what we're talking about as well. That was, I just want to throw out a lot of different references so people can go research on their own. But Dr. Rupert Sheldrake, or Sir Rupert Sheldrake, who's an English, I think, professor or a scientist in a lot of ways, that really looked at how we can, as humans and animals, particularly animals, could sense certain things or know. How do they know, for instance, like herds of animals and flocks of birds to move in this way or that way, almost like as one organism? Like that's almost amazing in itself. Like, how is that possible without some other form of communication happening? And
a school of fish in this perfect formation, all of a sudden they all take like a 180-degree turn, like at the same time, Yeah.
Exactly. And so we can document this all day long with certain animals and species, but that's not to say that we don't have that power either. And that even goes back to, like, you're thinking of this, the psychic ideas, but you're even, normal people can be like, oh, I just had a weird thing about thinking of calling my mom, or just something came up, and then all of a sudden your mom calls, or whoever that person is. And it's like, is that just coincidence? Like, those are the things you have to actually start taking into consideration as data points, as parts of I guess, looking at a theory and breaking it down and saying, does this model work? Does this model hold any truth to it? Well, if so, then, I'm going to have these types of consequences, or these types of things that manifest, or that I can actually document, or data points, like I said, that validate the theory or they don't. And so that's basically what we have to do with everything we take in. And I'm trying to say that as I do that with everything that, as far as research goes, you see what data points line up and what actually corroborates the information you've already looked at, and what resonates, what doesn't, in a lot of ways. And that comes back to intuition as well, and looking at all the data points that you come up with, and from so many different sources, right? It's like, why would there be so many people from different backgrounds? Of course, they don't all get together and just be like, okay, this is what we're gonna start
conspiracy. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Like, that's the biggest conspiracy ever, if anything. So that goes back to a lot of the.
When you see that alignment of sources that are completely unrelated, I mean, that has to show you something. I think that's pretty profound, for sure. And I think the other thing that, the aspect of discerning things is, a lot comes from your own personal experiences. Like, when you seeing is believing, right? When you have something happen to you, whether you see it, whether you feel it, whatever it is, it takes you to a level of belief that is beyond, reading a book or anything you see in a documentary. You actually experience that. That's very impactful. Like, I've experienced mediumships before, where, people always dismiss like psychic readings and stuff, like, well, they were just pretty generic. That could have applied to any situation or whatever your future is, or anything like this. But when you see someone tapping into, your family lineage and giving very specific details about your particular family, and not just doing it to you, but like a group of people in a room, and they're all very, very detailed. It's not like it's some generic thing that maybe applies to anybody, but like hitting it right on the money every time. It's like, how? I mean, with not even knowing the person, I think that speaks volumes of, the power of feeling something and experience something in the belief. And I don't know, Derek, if you want to talk some of your experiences.
Yeah, exactly. And I've touched on some in the past, but I haven't really explained myself, I don't think, to the point where people can understand what happened and why I think what happened the way it did. I guess I'll go back to the very first one that was outside of, well, it was in Taos, but outside of our grandfather's house and home.